Hey, happy Friday, everybody. This is Justin. I just wanted to share with you a couple of quick thoughts from the book of Numbers. I've been reading through the book of Numbers, and that's just where I'm at in my Bible reading plan for reading through the Bible in a year. And a couple of things that stuck out to me this week, especially as I was reading through that I want to share with you. The book of Numbers is all about counting. I reminded myself, how many times in the last couple of weeks have I counted? As we're here in the social distancing and the self-quarantining and all that stuff, you start sitting there going, man, I can count every second of every hour, and it just seems like it drags on and on. And then I start to count, how many days have we actually been doing this? Or how many things do we not have that we're used to having? How many boxes of cereal? How many rolls of toilet paper? How many? You can count and count and count. But it's basically, and even in the book of Numbers, it's taking an inventory of, what do we have? One of the things that stuck out to me in Numbers chapter 1, one of the first counts that they did was that God told Moses and Aaron, listen, count and take an inventory of the men that are above 20 years old that are ready for war, that are ready to go to battle. And they did that count, and they came up with about 603,550 men that were ready to go to war. And that sounds like a lot, but that also tells us that they were most likely 2 to 3 million Israelites. And that just tells us that they were preparing to fight. They weren't going to miss the wars because God was preparing them. Listen, when you go into the promised land, there's going to be some wars that we're going to have to fight. So let's take inventory and take stock of those men now. And one of the things that I thought about when I read that was, if I take inventory of my life spiritually, how many people do I have that are ready to go to war with me? Or maybe, in those seasons when I'm just depressed or discouraged, how many people do I have that are willing to go to war on my behalf? And so I want to share a couple of those things because I keep some things in my Bible just as a reminder of those things. The first thing that I came across was this little note. It says, "Shut up, Willie Jr." I know that's not my name, but it's an inside joke to a very precious woman whose name is Beverly Holman. Her and her family are just instrumental people in mine and Jamie's life. We love them dearly, and every time I see that note, it's a reminder of how God rescued me and how He has encouraged me through her and through her family. The next thing that I see is this card that says "Speak Up" on it, and there's some notes on the back. This card was something that I got when Jamie and I were doing just kind of a prayer trip to Atlanta, Georgia, when we were praying about God possibly calling us there. And it was that message that Louis Giglio was preaching that morning while we were at church there that confirmed for Jamie and I that was a step that we were supposed to take, even leaving the life of comfort that we had in Midland, Texas, to move to Atlanta, Georgia. And so when I see that card, I'm just reminded of God, and I should trust you with everything because you've always been faithful. One of the things that you see in the book of Numbers chapter 1, that first count that they did of that 603,550 men, all of those people died except for 2 because they failed to trust God. They failed to trust Him even though they'd seen Him lead them through the Red Sea, even though they had seen Him provide food and water in a desert. They had failed to trust Him, and every one of those people died. And so I see that card, and it's just a reminder of, man, God, you've always been faithful, and I always want to trust you. Another thing that I run through is this card that just has the numbers, the meaning of numbers in the Bible. And it's not necessarily that I read that often. It's just a reminder that Marion Parker gave that to me. And so every time I see that, I'm just thankful that Marion and Patsy Parker are pieces and parts of our lives, and that God has blessed us through them so many times in their prayers. And any time that I get ready to go into a spiritual battle, or any time that I'm in a spiritual battle, I can guarantee you that those two are 2 of the first people that are going to get a call. Another thing that I see in my Bible that I keep is this little note. It's from Justin Weidman, who is the pastor at Dirac Baptist Church. And he and I were just talking in the middle of someone else preaching one Sunday, and he wrote this letter. It says, "I love you, buddy. I pray for you and your family." And maybe the most impactful thing for me is he wrote, I would lower you through the roof if you needed it. And maybe you know that story of the friends that lowered their ailing friend through the roof so that they could meet Jesus. And when I see that, I'm just thankful for the pastors that God has put in my life and helped me or allowed me to become friends with. And I'm just so thankful. And it's a reminder that I should pray for them as well. And maybe the last thing that I'll show you from my Bible, I can't show you everything, but I have this little picture that's a picture of my wife and Jace. Julia was newborn at that time, and so she's not in that picture. But I don't know if you're anything like me, but I can tell you this. Every day, the clearest picture of the gospel that I get in my life without going to the Bible is by looking at my wife and kids. To know that God has given me such an amazing gift in spite of who I am and who I was in the past. What a beautiful picture of the gospel. And let me show you, I'll show you one more. I said that was the last one, but I'm going to show you one more. On every Bible that I have, there are signatures. And these 3 signatures are probably some of the most influential people in my life. One signature is Brother Mike Fortenberry, who God has used to rescue me more times than I can count in my life, and his wife, Jency. Man, they are amazing people, and we're just so thankful that not only have they signed my Bible, but they have spiritually signed my life and made an impact. And then the other one is Dr. Jerry Vines, who is one of my spiritual heroes in the ministry. And so the fact that he has, again, spiritually stamped my life, not with a signature on a Bible, but just in leading and providing information and showing an example to follow. But I show you all of those things to point you to another count that happened in Numbers chapter 2. Numbers chapter 2, God tells Aaron and Moses that they should position each army by their family facing the tabernacle. And it was a reminder of, listen, you can count everything that you want to. You can have 603,550 able fighting men. But at the end of the day, the only thing that's going to get us through any of these battles that we're going to face is the presence and the glory of God. And so he in Numbers chapter 2, verse 1 and 2, he positions each army, every time they stopped, they were to position themselves around the tabernacle, facing the tabernacle, just as a reminder of, listen, we can count everything we want to count, but one thing that we can always count on is if we're worshiping God and we're seeking His glory, we're always going to come out on top. So I want to challenge you with 2 things leading into the weekend. Number 1, have you taken an inventory spiritually of your life to see, number 1, am I ready for war, God, if you call me to it? Or number 2, if I'm discouraged, who do I have that I know is fighting for me and praying for me? And the second thing is this: am I facing God? Am I focused on worshiping Him? Am I focused on His glory? Even though I'm fighting a battle that I can't see the enemy, even though we're dealing with all of this isolation and maybe some bitterness and anger, we can always focus on the worship of God and His glory and know that He's always going to lead us in the way that's best if we trust Him. So as you think about those things this week, I want to leave you with the words of one of my favorite hymns. The hymn is called Count Your Many Blessings. The first verse says this. It says, when upon life's billows are you tempest tossed, when you feel discouraged thinking all is lost, count your many blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. So I'm going to challenge you going into the weekend. Maybe we should stop counting how many days we've been isolated. That's just going to make us feel more discouraged. Take some time going into this weekend to stop and think, God, how many times have you provided, either through people or situations? Let me count those days. Weekend, God, am I facing you? Am I focused on worshiping you? Am I focused on your glory? Because that's the best place for any of us to be. We love you, and we thank God for you, and we look forward to the day that God will let us worship together again. But in the meantime, have a great weekend.